Okay, so this is our after podcast show with Frank King, the mental health comedian.
Ah,
And
it's on video, right?
this is on
Are we on
video.
video?
Frank, you just did a fantastic podcast with us on suicidality. Chronic suicidality is what you talked about.
Yep.
And, you know, this is something that's a subject in our relationship. I remember coming home and we wrote about this in the book, when I was 16 years old and seeing my mom's wrist bandaged up. She had tried one of the two attempts, was on my 16th birthday.
Oh, ouch.
You know, really tried to cover that up. And, oh, I'm so glad you're home, sweetheart. But I saw them. I saw the bandages. And it, to this day, you know, is a visual that I can't unsee. And you know, Mom and I, we've talked about it, and you've said that it's not that you wanted to die, you just wanted the pain to end.
I said the very same thing that you said, Frank.
Yeah,
I didn't want to die.
no, it's a misconception that people have, and it comes up all the time. Why do they want to die? No, no. I mean, some people, I suppose, but very few, I would imagine. It's just
Absolutely.
then
What
with
what was it for you when you go back to that moment? You know, you've said in your comedy shows, I've tasted the barrel of my gun. What When you go back to that moment, what was that about for you?
What do you mean? Why didn't I pull the trigger?
Yeah.
Well, it's in my TED Talk, my first one. And by the way, before my wife hit the button to play the video when it posted on YouTube, I said, "Look, I need to tell you about a half a dozen things you have no idea about, because nobody knew how depressed I'd been, how close I'd come, not even her, not even she, I guess." So what it was with the recession, my corporate speaking comedy business dropped off 80%, seemingly overnight. And I ran all my credit lines, all my credit cards, and it wasn't like we had, like Sea-Doos and flat screen TVs and a Coke habit. We just had a large house payment, although the house was 50% paid for, and had some negative cash flow on a rental property or two. And I just couldn't keep up with without the income, I just couldn't keep up. So we filed Chapter 7 bankruptcy, and what was killing me was my wife's pain. Her favorite horse died. I don't know if you know anything about horses, but horses are very sensitive. I think it sensed her distress. It colicked twice. The second time it didn't survive. That was the love of her life. And so if I'd been single, I think I could have sailed through just take the house. But so anyway, I was going to kill myself. And people, I think, believe that when you're in that state of mind that your rational brain is gone, that you have no rational thought at all. But I had $1 million in life insurance, so I was literally worth more dead than alive.
Mm-hmm.
There's in suicidality, there's one of the factors is a burdensomeness. The world would be better without me.
Right.
So the problem was I didn't know how long I'd had the policy, because many policies have a 2-year suicide clause, and you kill yourself anytime in the first 2 years, it pays back the premiums, but that's it. After 24 months, it pays in full. So I called my insurance agent, a kind and caring man, Graham, and we're chit-chatting away because he knows financially we're struggling. He knows I've got some mental things going, but I don't think he knew just how bad. And so in passing, I just said, "Hey, how long do I have that policy?" Or it was actually 2 policies. He goes, "I don't know, I'll check." And he goes, 22 months. Pause. No, don't do it. Because as an insurance agent, he'd had a half a dozen calls like that. And I think 3 or 4 had ended in the death of the insured, and he had to deliver, the death benefit. And so when he hung up the phone, because I called him right after the TED Talk posted, and I said, if you want to check YouTube, you'll see the TED Talk. I mentioned your name. He goes, "Yeah, Frank, when I hung up the phone, I said to my wife, I think he's going to kill himself." So 22 months, meaning I had 2 months to go. I refused to leave my wife not only brokenhearted, but destitute.
Right.
And so I thought, well, you know what? Here's the thing about chronic suicidality. I've heard it said that by other people, if I didn't have chronic suicidality as an option, I would have killed myself a long time ago. So knowing that I could do it in 2 months and a day gave me the strength to go 2 months. And then by that time, the bankruptcy's gone through, the phone calls had stopped. You know, I'd sort of broken the surface, taken a deep breath with the depression, and I no longer felt like I had to pull the trigger. So so the short answer is that I refused to leave my wife. Part of my brain was still working, and I refused to leave her destitute. So, you know, and if I'd asked her, people go, well, I'm sure if you'd ask her, does she want the money or you, she would have told you. But, you know, I just, again, that wasn't it's not situational. I just wanted out of the pain, you know, stop the pain. So.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, you've said the same thing.
I've said
before.
the same thing.
I mean, Mom literally thought she had my birthday presents lined up, the you know, chocolate cake out waiting. Literally thought that I would come home, we would celebrate my birthday, you know, and just sort of step over her dead body and not notice and go on with our lives. And
yeah, I had that all figured out.
Sure, I'm a burden. They'd be better off without me. I've already bought the presents. You know, it's yeah. So.
Well, I'm going to have to say, and for everyone that's out there listening in front of my daughter, until 30 minutes ago when you talked about the chronic
Suicidality?
I've got that.
I had a feeling. I was watching your face when I said it. I'm thinking,
I didn't know. I didn't know what it was, and I've never admitted that to my daughter. And I'm sorry.
No.
But I
oh, honey.
Don't be sorry.
It's what you said in the beginning. I didn't know it had a name.
Yeah.
And I did feel like I was crazy.
Yeah.
And I am a little bit.
Well, yeah, aren't we all? Well, and I had a podcast earlier this week with a retired psychiatrist, 20 years.
Yeah.
He watched my TEDx. He comes on, he goes, Frank, listen, I got to tell you, I watched your TEDx, you taught me something. He goes, I realized watching your TEDx, I have chronic suicidality. It's a psychiatrist who's been practicing for 20 years. He goes, I've never talked about it on my podcast. I may not today, but you know what? Unprompted, he did what your mom just did. He goes, listen, I got to tell you, you know, I've got chronic suicidality. I've never heard anybody frame it that way where I realized, oh my God. Well, here's Jann, here's the upside, again, of speaking about it. A young woman came up to me after my presentation at a college and said, thank you for your keynote. I said, you're welcome. She goes, you made me weep, as you just did, Jann. I said, how did I make you weep? She goes, when you said, get it fixed, buy a new one, or kill yourself, she goes, I've been having those thoughts my entire life. And she said, I didn't know it had a name. I thought I was a freak. And when you mentioned it, I realized for the first time in my life, I was not alone, and I wept.
Yes, exactly.
And that's the power of starting the conversation. That's the ROI, return on investment. That's why I do it. That's why I can't kill myself, because people like Jann, people like her, you know, if I wasn't here, would they ever realize that they weren't freaks? And
Right.
There's lots of us. And yeah, and she said, she was 23. She goes, I was hoping I'd grow out of it. I go, I'm 62. If I'm going to grow out of it, I better get started.
Well, I'm 71, so
yeah.
that's
So yeah, I don't think there's any hope for us, Jann.
exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, it's the last taboo. It's you know, it's when they asked me about Robin Williams, I said, look, Robin Williams was very forthcoming about his drug and alcohol addiction, treatment and recovery, because people now pretty much believe that alcoholism is not a moral failure or a character flaw. It's a disease. So mental illness is trailing that by, I don't know, 40, 50 years. We're back kind of where alcoholism was. There was a reason when they established Alcoholics Anonymous, it was anonymous. But nowadays in Hollywood especially, it's like a resume item, a best-selling memoir. But Robin never came out and said he was bipolar or that he had thoughts of suicide. Although during an interview with Terry Gross on Fresh Air, if you listen carefully, he says, sort of apropos of nothing, as my mother would say, living is not for everybody. So, oftentimes people who are close will drop hints if you're listening and know what to listen for. And that's what, when I keynote, I try to give them information so they can hear, you know, they heard it, but really listen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you drop any hints in that time in your life?
No. Yeah. Nor would I have reached out to anybody. You know, if people go, you know, if you get really depressed, call me. No, that's not going to happen. Right. That's I made up my mind. Well, you know, here's the deal. 8 out of 10 people who are depressed and suicidal or whatever are ambivalent. 2 out of 10, you, Jan, me. That's birthday presents are bought, cake's made, just step over my body, enjoy yourself, blow out the candles,
That's right.
Make a wish. I was just going to go. I had a time, place, method. I just, my brain would not, my rational side would not let me leave my wife penniless. I just couldn't do that to her. Although I could leave her, although I killed myself and leave her, but I couldn't leave her penniless. So that tells you.
You don't figure that out. You don't rationalize that part.
No, that part, no.
I'm leaving.
Yeah, never occurred to me. You know, that me being, I mean, I knew she'd miss me, but the part I was worried about was her financial future after I was gone. So, yeah, it's an odd mindset. It's, but you know, as Jan, I can tell you, it's, you know, it's just the way the mind works.
Just before we close, what would either of you say to someone that wants to reach out to someone in their life and ask them if they're okay? Because they have a feeling, a gut reaction, a gut feeling that something's going on, something's not right. What could people have said to either one of you at that time in your life?
Well, I was hell-bent on it. I'm guessing your mom was as well. The protocol is to say, are you having thoughts of suicide? Yeah. Just flat out ask them. Don't ask them in this way. You're not going to do something stupid, are you?
Exactly.
You're not going to get the answer you're looking for. But yeah, you know, if they are the least bit ambivalent, you know, are you having thoughts of suicide? If they say yes, do you have a plan? If they have a plan, then what is your plan? That is the protocol. But again, if, you know, I don't know that I would have been forthcoming. I had, you know, we were broke, losing everything. I thought, you know, my wife I'll be gone, but she could save the farm and continue rescuing horses. But
the question would have given you pause. And maybe that's all you would have needed, is just that pause to let your mind regroup or recalibrate or whatever. I don't know.
I don't know. I would hope that, and it would probably depend on who asked.
Maybe.
And how they asked. And, you know,
I do think it's important that if you suspect that there's someone that is in that space, ask, say, do something to show them that you just noticed something.
Well, and there's an old urban legend that, you know, you should never mention the S word in front of people who are depressed because it might give them the idea to die by suicide, which I find as a comedian.
Totally.
Yeah, it's, you know, suicide, what a great idea. Why didn't I think of that? Like it never crossed my mind. Well, I got to tell you, I almost got booked, this close to getting booked at a college in Texas, a religious school in Texas, Presbyterian, and they're about to sign off, and one staff member said, no, we can't have him speak on campus. I said, why not? She said, because if he mentions suicide and one of the students does it, then we're going to be held liable by the parents. And I'm like, oh, God. Oh,
sad.
Yeah, because, you know, if somebody does, will they think back and go, maybe we should have had him come to campus?
Right.
Yeah, because sometimes, like, when I did my last TEDx, somebody said, you're leaving after you do the TEDx? And I said, no, I'm not going to leave. Why not? They had 2 breaks for cookies and lemonade. I said, watch what happens at the break. And I'm standing at a break, and there's 6 people lined up.
Wow.
One couple, a mother and daughter, were there in Pensacola. They typed in Google, things to do in Pensacola this weekend. TED Talk comes up, mention of suicide. Her brother had lived with him for 3 months, depressed. He seemed to be getting better, and they died by suicide. And she just wanted to try to understand why someone would do that. It's like Jan and I have been someplace. We've looked over the edge, and we've come back. And people who have lost someone want to know why.
Yeah.
Why did you come back? You know, and my loved one didn't. You know, they just want answers, and that's why I hang out. I always hang out. I do Q&A generally, and then I say, look, if you got individual questions, I'll stay here till we answer all the questions, because people just, you know, don't know.
It's a topic we need to talk about.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank. Thank you for staying a little
Thank
longer
you.
and talking about this with us.
Oh yeah. Well, those questions weren't that provocative, you know.
Well, they weren't. They weren't, but there were tears flowing. So.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think we made a breakthrough with your mom today.
Yes, thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
you're well. Well, that happens almost every time I speak.
Yeah.
Somebody doesn't know that's what they've got, and they just think they're alone out there in the.
Yes, that's why I've never spoken about it until right this minute, ever, to anyone. Because
Well, come
I
on,
just
Jan.
think, yeah, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I told the normal person, if I'm sitting in a coffee, go, yeah, I'm sitting at the railroad crossing this morning. I'm thinking, is that metal
Exactly.
or wood? How could I get through there without getting through the other side, knowing the railroad a lot of money? Okay, let me get this straight. You're thinking about getting hit by a train. You're worried about if you go through all the way, you're going to owe the railroad for the crossing guards. Is it really?
Yeah, exactly. No, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's why I hang out with people who like us because they get it.
That's right. That's right.
I'm grateful both of you are on this planet. So
Oh, thank you. I'm grateful you're here, Shari. And you know, you look awfully familiar. I've seen you somewhere before, I swear, because I'm watching your demo video and I'm thinking, I've seen you. I've maybe a video or performed somewhere or something anyway.
oh, really interesting.
Yeah, or maybe you just, I've got one of those faces. People go, you look familiar, and I've got one of those faces. And maybe you look like someone I know, but I'm just watching.
I remind you of a Hollywood actress. I don't know.
Jennifer Aniston.
Perhaps.
Yes, that was what I was going to say.
All right. Well, thank you again, Frank, for being with us today. And just one more time, how can people reach you if they need to?
Let's see. I would just type in thementalhealthcomedian.com or just thementalhealthcomedian, and like I said, all my stuff will come up. And don't you guys have a podcast like 4 minutes ago with Kristen?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, tell her we talked about everybody speaking at colleges when you talk to her.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to stop.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Congratulations on the breakthrough, Jan. Thanks for sharing that. That's not easy to share with anybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.